Alright, so today we're going to be doing the E83 X3 Reliability. The E83 X3 ran from 2003 production all the way up to 2010. We had facelift in 2006. So this one is 2005. This is the sport model. So we have the little nicer wheels. We have the sport seats. I don't know if that's sport bumper or not, but in 2006, they went from M54, which is what this one is, up to the N52. And then you could also get the sport models on 2006, 2010 that had the N52 with the 3-stage manifold, which is kind of a rare option. This particular one still has a GM transmission, obviously no 06 that would change to the ZF box. I think it still could have had either, depends on what it was. I'm not sure about the diesel, if they had this in diesel or not. I didn't see anybody that has these in diesel, but I'm not saying that's impossible. All right, cosmetic wise, these pre-facelift ones do still have the plastic bumpers front and rear. So obviously you have to keep those up and you have to keep those treated. This one's due for cleaning again. They do have some odd emblems. As you can see, this one's getting faded, but the whole piece has to be replaced. There's a few, it's kind of like an E46, but there is some differences. Definitely has some different tail lights in it than anything else. Ever so slightly resembling the X5, but then again, more of an E70 X5 tail light. I would say, other than that, wearability parts, all these BMWs still suffer if they sit around. They could have the C's brake calipers. It still is a fairly heavy car. It's a little over 4,000 pounds. So you can work through the brakes pretty fast, especially in the front. The rear upper control arms, it still has a single arm like the X5. That could wear out. These have a little more tendency to have driveshaft issues in the rear. I haven't seen anybody said they stripped off the splines in the front like the X5, but the rear, a lot of times the carrier bearing and guibo wear out prematurely on these, and then if you don't replace it, it'll mess up the U-joints. Once the U-joints are messed up, they're non-replaceable like most BMWs. You have to buy a whole new drive shaft. The headlights also fade out. This one's been in the garage its whole life. It does have a little more appealing front end to it, I think, especially in facelift models where the front bumper is painted. Has enormous headlight squirters, which usually they're not quite that big on other stuff. The hood has kind of a mock-up hood scoop to it. It really doesn't have a lot of terrible exterior issues, to be honest. You can see under the hood of this thing, it does share the same pump as the E46. It's up here, easy to get to for a secondary air pump. This particular one does have, it's an 05, so it has upgraded valve cover. The one doesn't crack as easy. You still have your CCV issues. You still have your throttle body boot issues, although it seems like it's not quite as prevalent on the E83 here as a lot of stuff. The engine is down a little bit in the compartment from a car. Maybe not down as far as the X5 is. Changing the engine out, still sits on a cradle like the X5. And there's a lot more to deal with being all-wheel drive. You still have your expansion tank issues. This one just had a radiator leaking issue. We replaced that. Parts are cheap for it though. M54 cars, the parts are cheap. You have that going for you. It takes a little more care though with the coolant lines. This one's had upper and lower radiator hoses. It's probably overdue again for thermostat and water pump just to make sure it stays reliable. Under the hood, there's not really a whole lot else. Your average oil leaks. You can have the oil pan gasket leak, but you know, that's usually only after like 150 or closer to 200,000 miles you start having those kind of issues. So on this one, the thing I hate about it, you can see the steering wheel here. Well, it's really hot in here too. It's got some fading. It has this rubberized coating that likes to peel off. My mom's stuff's in here. This is her car. Has nice wood grain, has a nice dash. The radio does not have any of the issues that you have with the X5. You do have a little thing here, opens up. If you have nav, the nav will be in there. The gauge instrument cluster is a little bit nicer looking than a lot of these cars. I mean, it's a little more advanced, a little more Z4 kind of looking. And you can see there, It does backlight very nice. You know, overall, it's really been a very good car for her. It does about 40 miles a day. It hasn't been too needy on parts, but the previous owner has kept up on it very much so, and has kept a lot of issues tended to. Now I do know on 03 and 04, the very first year or two of this, they had some headlight issues with the wiring, coating degrading, which my E60 has that also. You just have to be careful when you handle, if you take those apart when you're handling that stuff. The drawback of the X3 before you can work on anything, you gotta take this stupid thing off. This has 4 screws that come off. This comes off. There's 4 more screws underneath of it. That's going to keep you from working on this thing on the side of the road. If you have a belt issue and you need to work on it real quick, it's not as possible on the X3. As far as room wise, you're about E46 room. I mean, it's about that size chassis anyway. That's about it for the engine. Any of these M54 double Vanos engines, if you overheat it, it's done. It strips the head bolts out, it's throw away, put a different engine in. The nice thing about these engines right now are you could buy an M54 for $550 to $600 off eBay, shipped to your front door. And remember, if you buy one of these that's blowing up and needs an engine, you pretty much have to get an engine from X3 or an X5. And I think even the X3 to X5 oil pans are different, even though the engine's the same. One from a car, you could use it, but you're gonna have to change the timing chains, the oil pump, everything. And you may not have good stuff off your original engine if the engine's blown up. I would say other than that, control arms, front control arms, they don't seem like they're quite as expendable on this thing as there are a lot of vehicles that hold up a little better on this. You know, it doesn't have the door handle problems. It doesn't have, I'm gonna go ahead and just say it, this is better than an X5. This is less chassis problems than an X5. There's no air ride. As far as I know, air ride is never an option on these. Also, not having the braking door handles and the window regulators constantly going out, that's a pretty big plus, to be honest with you. Not having the radio LEDs breaking up, the cluster LEDs breaking up. The X3 has really been doing pretty good, and these are getting cheaper now. I'm seeing facelift 07 08s of these for like $2,500 with a few problems. And you get the white ones look really good. They have all kinds of really pretty blue ones that look really good. For a beginner car, it's not a bad car, and it can be reliable, but you're gonna have to do your coolant lines and all your water pump, all your thermostat before you can drive it too far. That's gonna be a must on any of these. If somebody's just done it, that's great. Let's be honest, most times that's not the case. But I would say if you bought one of these and it has some drips, has some leaks, for a few $100s, you could bring it back to good shape if you fix it yourself. If you take it to a shop, you could have $5,000 or $6,000 in this thing easy and still not have it all fixed. But the biggest thing is look at the car. If the car has been taken care of, like this one has, you know, everything looks just super, super good on it. Shannon really did a good job on keeping this one up. If you find one like that, chances are it's going to be a pretty reliable car overall. So that's pretty much going to be it. I have so many videos out of this engine and how to do everything on it. In fact, I'm doing stuff now I'm not even recording. I have so many videos up on the M54. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. Hopefully this keeps somebody from getting a bad one, or at least knows someone to look for when buying one. The all-wheel drive ones, you always have a little bit of all-wheel drive noise and higher mileage. I won't let that necessarily scare you off. But any kind of aggressive shaking, smoking from under the hood, from the valve cover, that could run into some money. So hopefully this helps, guys. We'll talk to you later. Have a good day.